Hello, welcome to the Talk with T. Renee. I'm your host, T. Renee, and this episode we're talking about depression. And I have a wonderful, lovely lady that's an expert. She's a licensed mental health specialist, Miss Asha Terry. Did I get that right? Thank you, and welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So I have a question. First of all, how did you get into the business of being a licensed mental health specialist?
I've been doing it for a long time, so I've actually been doing this work for almost 14 years. I started out initially wanting to do community-based something. I didn't know exactly what. I'd done some volunteer work with AIDS communities, the homeless, and once I entered into the profession, I knew I wanted to be a social worker, and that kind of expanded into doing psychotherapy, and now I'm at the place where I actually have my own consulting company doing mental health screenings.
What exactly is psychotherapy?
Counseling that people get from a licensed mental health professional, be it a psychotherapist who's a psychologist, a clinical social worker, or even a psychiatrist.
And we're talking about this documentary that we're talking about. Is heavy. It's about depression, mental illness amongst the African American people, specifically black men who don't even barely talk to each other about deep dark stuff because they're taught don't cry. How can we change that so that we can start being more communicative?
I think this documentary is going to be a big help to that because I feel that having the visual is really key for people to see, wow, that person looks just like me. Or I know someone who talks that way or feels those same type of feelings, but I didn't know it was quite this. And putting the labels to things is really going to help because I think oftentimes we move through life thinking that this is normal, this is part of how we're supposed to be as African American people. And if we can actually start to define what is depression and how it looks, because it does look different in different communities. It looks different at times in different genders. And we have to actually be able to describe it, have people put their face to it to be able to break that glass that says, okay, this is typically not what is normal, so to speak, for getting by, but maybe it's a little bit beyond that, and we can actually help you by sharing stories, talking to other people, having specialists come in and actually explain what are the signs, what are the symptoms, how does this affect your love life, how does it affect work, how does it affect your relationships with your children and your spouses, and I think this documentary is going to do that.
I think it is too. And you talked about something we mentioned earlier. Sometimes you feel like you need to see somebody like yourself. How many people of color are psychotherapists in the mental health field?
Sadly enough, less than 10%. There are about 4% who are social workers, 4% psychologists, and about 4% are psychiatrists. And there are other people who are in the field who are licensed mental health counselors, social therapists, psychiatric nurse practitioners that all can provide therapy. But when it comes down to people of color who provide treatment, the numbers are so slim that people aren't seeing those faces that they hope to see when they go into a practitioner's office. And depending on where you live, the numbers can be even smaller. So in a big metropolitan city like New York, you may find more people of color than, let's say, in rural North Carolina. And that's, one of the reasons why I think so many people of color are so opposed to going into a provider's office because they feel like if they see someone who doesn't look like them, they're not going to typically understand their experience, which isn't always true. But that immediate feeling of security and safety when you see someone who does look like you presents less of a barrier if you did have that available option.
Absolutely. And you touched on something. I too suffer and have suffered with depression. My brother died of colon cancer 9 months ago, and he's my best friend, my mentor, the boss of me. And when he said he had cancer, my life was forever changed, and I was severely depressed. I was eating. I was thinking dark thoughts that I've never thought. I'm college educated. I grew up kind of like the Cosby Show, but I'm gonna tell you, when that happened and when he passed, I thought about doing bad stuff, smoking crack, hurting myself, cutting myself. I didn't do it, thank God. But talk about, you said something interesting, the co-survivors. I didn't even know what that meant. Tell us about what a co-survivor is.
So a co-survivor are the loved ones, the friends, the family, the spouses, the lovers who outlive those that we lose. And they don't have to be people who experience death necessarily, but co-survivors are also those people who are going through the grieving process. So if you have someone who's severely ill, chronically ill, that are going through the stages of losing a person or seeing them suffer, you're still the person who is around surviving that process and dealing with it with them. And I don't think we give a lot of attention to the co-survivors, because if someone is fortunate enough to have a person who can be their caretaker, we don't really think that they're suffering too. We think that the suffering is all coming from the person who's the sick one, the identified patient. But the co-survivor is also suffering because they're seeing progressive changes. They're going through their own feelings of loss during that time and after that time. And then we have to actually be able to provide some type of support. So it's up to people like mental health providers, medical physicians, to be able to say, these are services for you while you're going through this, be it respite, or once the loss has occurred, be it a support group, that we have to be able to offer people, because it doesn't just affect the person who's initially suffering from that illness, but also the people around them.
Absolutely. So is there light at the end of in the tunnel? Can we get healed? Is there a thing where it's like alcoholism? I'll always be alcohol, suffer from the disease. Will we one day, with the right therapist, the right fit, doing the work that we need to be doing internally, can we be healed one day and be better than we were even before?
I'm so glad you asked that question, because I think when we talk about mental illness, we don't often give light to recovery. Recovery is a big part of getting through being depressed or having any other type of mental illness. So there's a phase where, be it treatment from depression or something else more chronic like schizophrenia or bipolar disorder, there is a recovery stage. And it comes along with being able to stay in therapy. With some people, it may be on medication. With others, it may be multiple types of services that are in place, from individual psychotherapy and counseling or group therapy and counseling, and possibly medication added on as a supplement. But it has to be something that not only the provider offers to the client, but the client has to be committed to be a part of that process. So it's not an overnight recovery period, but it is something that is a commitment on both parties to stay engaged, involved, and know that with the right treating provider, you are going to get better.
And there you have it. I think that's so important for us to know that we can recover, we can do better. One last question. How did you get involved with the project? This is a wonderful documentary and it's bringing about so many wonderful people, but how did they find you?
I actually was doing some work with a great psychiatrist who I've been dying to get on camera, but he won't do it. And he works in the community as well, and he provides treatment to all ages of adults, all the way through geriatrics, and he thought that I would be a good fit for this project, so he referred me to the documentarians Kenneth and Squeaky, and we sat down and had dinner and basically talked about the work that I've done in the community, and the work that I'm looking to do in the community in terms of providing mental health evaluations, and they just thought it'd be a great fit, and it just gelled, and here we are.
Thank you so much, Asha, for coming again. Asha Terry, licensed mental health specialist. She's gorgeous, she's beautiful, and she's smart. And I'm so glad that I met you, to know that there's sisters that look just like me that have wonderful information. There's tools, and there was our previous guest, Iman, that's a wonderful, handsome person that lets us know that I've been through a lot of stuff, but I'm recovering. Every day I'm getting better, and every day I'm getting stronger, so thank you. You're welcome. There you have it. Thank you so much, guys. The Talk with T. Renee.